All right, one click transition and it worked. So
Nicely done.
that's me trying to get the hang of the StreamYard scenes feature. So here we are on the Dev Talk Show on a Friday, getting ready for the weekend here in the US and wherever you are. Hopefully it's been a good week for you. How do you feel about, and so first of all, I'm here with my co-host Rich Ross, and I'm going to ask, how do you feel about when we have one of our Monday weekends, which there's several of in the US? I think pretty common. Labor Day, Memorial Day, are those the two? Mm-hmm. Some people might have President's Day off.
President's Day, and then in January, Martin Luther King Day as well.
Right.
All of those are Monday holidays, which is interesting, right?
So how do you feel about it when you leave for that weekend and you get a long weekend?
Yeah.
But then does the next week seem like a holiday too, because Friday comes and you go, oh gosh, it's already Friday?
It does make for a quick week. Yeah, I don't think about it during the week. Once the week happens, it's more the weekend, right? Getting that Sunday, and I always have that, maybe it's from school, having that Sunday night pang of, oh, I've got, what's due, what's the week going to be like? That kind of shifts to Monday. But I mean, once you're there, it's just another day. That's kind of how I mean.
Because I did think the week went fast, and I feel like that always happens after the holiday. And the funny thing about the 3-day weekends is that I tell myself, oh gosh, I have an extra day, and then before I know it, it's Monday night, and I go, what?
Right. Where did they go? Yeah, I think that's more that guilty feeling at the end of it. I didn't get all the stuff I wanted to get done. It's like any break. But
yeah, absolutely. All right, so I was just double checking that we are live on Twitch and YouTube. I mean, certainly StreamYard tells me, but it just looking at my browser off screen too. That's why I'm looking this way. So in any case, welcome to the Dev Talk Show. It's just before this weekend. I think what we're going to try to do today, if you've been following along, we have been working on a user group meeting application that maybe we'll use at Philly.net someday. We'll see. But it's been a little slow going. I think we got off to a really blazing start. And then, that was an unintentional pun, just because we are using Blazor. Right. I think we got off, but then what happened is I think we made some choices early on and ran with them, and that was fine. And I don't have a problem with saying, hey, I've never really tried this combination of things before, or I don't actually have much experience with the WebAssembly standalone project. So let's just sort of create something. And it always gets to the place where you wonder, do you just keep what you have and start building it towards, that production ready surface where you're going to want it to have some kind of continuous delivery pipeline, or you want to have a testing framework in place. And we took a little bit of a pause to examine testing options. And so it's been slower as we try to get something in place that we can use going forward, so that we can work on the project, run the tests, and just say like, okay, we didn't break anything.
Right.
Yeah,
I think part of that is for the app that we're doing here. It's different than if you go back and look at the things that we've done before. It's like found a project, let's spin something out, let's see how it works. And this is trying to put a little more structure and a little more, make it a little more resilient and production ready by putting those things in place, which is probably what you would be doing if you were building out an application that you wanted others to share and use, as opposed to just trying something out. So I think that's, and for us, I mean, certainly for me, I don't do a lot of the test driven stuff or the testing of the things all the time. Right. So it's good to kind of come back and reevaluate what's there now, what's out there. How would we organize those things once you go down a path? So I think it was good to do that, but I think we want to figure out how can we get to a point where, all right, testing's kind of in a good spot. Let's kind of move things forward. And I think that's what we can kind of get through with some of the stuff we've got going today.
Yeah. It might be interesting to get to a place where we can do more test-driven development. But for right now, I think part of the issue, there's nothing to present, but at least it tried. Oh, I figured out the sharing audio thing, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I figured out what it is when you click share or present, there is in that window where you're choosing a tab, a window, or a screen, at the bottom of that window, there is an option to also share audio, and it's powerful enough to basically only share if you're only picking a window or a tab. You oh, interesting. You're sharing. Okay, so let me not share this real quick.
Okay.
It's telling me that you're going to end up getting audio fed back to you because I'm listening to your audio as well.
Oh, okay.
So instead, I was in the middle of saying, let me remove this. I was in the middle of saying that it's powerful enough, although this can be a little frustrating, to share audio, share a tab or screen instead. No, that's fine. We're just going to share this window. I can probably work around that. And the way I think I would work around that is because we use, Voicemeeter as an audio software, as I could probably redirect your voice to a different audio input.
Yeah.
But so that's something else for me to figure out. It just gave me that warning where it said, once you do this, your guest is going to hear their own voice. And I thought, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
That could work.
I guess the other thing I could do is this. Sorry. Last time. Okay. So what do we have? We have a couple test APIs that have been included in the project. One of them, this one here, this orbital test was our attempt using the .NET Aspire testing project. And so that one is sitting, if I say that I want to add a new project just to show it off. I wonder if it'll come up super early. We'll see.
Yeah, I even have it on the right there.
I don't think I do. Sorry. I have the starter app.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't think I have it here.
I did that one.
So if I have .NET Aspire test project, I have these three that came up, and I have the choice of 3 frameworks, at least in the box, MS Test, NUnit, XUnit. So we did that, and that creates a test project that actually fires up the Aspire integration.
Yes. So
to conduct the tests, it fires it up, which means it's going to use Docker or Podman or whatever your container setup is. I think those are the two that, the documentation, I don't think limits it to those two, but it suggests Docker or Podman or some other container.
Yeah, those are the popular ones.
Yeah. And we used this to write some unit tests. Some tests. I keep saying unit tests. It's easy to say. We used it to write some integration tests, and those tests worked. There's certainly the arrange step, we could probably factor out, but it's interesting that it actually fires up a distributed application testing builder and sets the projects, and it gives you an HTTP client so that you can start making HTTP client calls. It's interesting. And then we also started on what I think that's not what I wanted. I wanted Solution Explorer, a more traditional test API in this project.
Yeah.
And this one uses the Web Application Factory, which is part of ASP.NET Core. And like it says there, bootstraps an application in memory for functional end-to-end tests. So it's still designed for integration tests. And the reason why is because this is going to basically use the web host builder setup that you've defined here. So it's going to do things like add the Cosmos client, and it's going to use any scoped services that you have.
Yeah. But that's
Go
interesting,
ahead.
right? So because our Cosmo client gets created, or at least I suppose it could wire it up, but it wouldn't go anywhere because that container is not necessarily up and running.
The container's not necessarily running. Exactly. And so we found that if I run Test Explorer on this, so, I accidentally added it to, that's fine, I guess. Hold on a second.
Okay.
So I'm getting a call.
If you got to get it.
No, but I have to answer. I know that I have to answer.
Okay.
So yeah, we were talking about these unit tests. I don't know if you want to take it for a second. That the main reason why we are going to start skipping these, I think, is right here in the duration. So give me just a second here.
Yeah, go for it. I can talk through that. So yeah, we have Chris going to go off video for a minute, but for the test that we have here, if you go back to, I thought he was going to leave me hanging without a screen because all this code right now is sitting on his machine. Although I could probably, I think I did do a pull of the branch. Anyway, what we have there is two sets of tests. And if you think about it, that first set of tests, the one that go orbital.test, those are using the .NET Aspire testing framework that we brought in. Just because of what was there and what we did, I think it was NUnit. And Chris on the test API one, which is using the web application factory, if I remember right, that's an XUnit test. And we can figure out if we want to kind of standardize across those. But if you look at and notice what's kind of important there, the first ones run and take, roughly 16 seconds to complete. And then the bottom ones that are just basically spinning up the API application itself only take about, a couple hundred milliseconds. And if we think about the type of testing that we're trying to do here with this is, I think we can think of them as two different types of tests. There's unit tests. And when we think about things related to the specifically testing our API service, we want those to run as a unit test. You want them to run relatively quickly, right? If you make a change to something, you add a class to something, you refactor something, you want to make sure that you've got the capability to very quickly know thumbs up, thumbs down. Does the rest of my project application essentially still work? And if not, that's a great opportunity to kind of say, well, you're in the mode, you're in you're in the headspace of the things that you just changed. Now that you've got a test that fails, you can take a look at it and say, well, okay, now it's probably this thing because it's related to the part that I'm working on, as opposed to something that's a little more integration test like and waiting for that to happen. You certainly could do the first set of tests as part of your workflow, but it takes a little longer to get to that point and be able to essentially, know if things succeeded or not. So that's why we're kind of breaking this out into two separate tests. One that focuses on a specific project, and then one that looks at the overall application itself and runs what are quote unquote integration type tests. And those can be longer, and that's okay. Think about when you go ahead and check in your code to a repository, they get checked into a branch. As part of that branch and the pull request or the branch getting checked in, they may run those integration tests just to you should run some kind of testing then to make sure that what's there works and can go into the main branch. But having those longer duration tests, it's fine then because they're going to happen in the background while you're off doing something else. So I was just kind of explaining unit test versus integration test. I don't know how much of that you caught, but
yeah. And I think the main thing is that we found that these tests just take a while to spin up the whole .NET Aspire infrastructure, where technically with the web application factory, we should be able to bring these tests way down in timing. And while this works, what I'd like to figure out how to do, and I'm not saying that we know how to do this yet, is I'd like to set this up so that you just said it, is that something like this runs on in the DevOps pipeline or the actions workflow or whatever you're using for continuous delivery. I think that'd be nice. And then the developer just runs these. So the question remained as to like, well, why doesn't this work, right? And I think what I was trying to say, okay, I think I know why this doesn't work. And I think it's what you said is we can't connect to the local Cosmos DB emulator.
Right.
But I'm a little surprised by that. I'm not sure I want to put too much time into figuring it out, because here is what, I mean, wouldn't this be the leftover emulator from, but maybe there's more to it than this, right? And this emulator is running.
I think there is a little bit. So let's do the Aspire project in reverse, right? If you think about the original demo was I had two projects, and the products and the shop knew what the product URL was. And we don't have that configuration anymore existing inside of our application. It relies on the service discovery of Aspire to find out what that is. There's the issue, right?
Yeah. Web application, that service discovery hasn't taken place. And so admittedly, something that I haven't dove into personally is when you start using these labels like this to say, okay, refer to Cosmos DB as Cosmos DB instead of putting in the actual. In fact, this even says, oh no, it does say, because this is from the Aspire integration, but other things like when you add this project, you don't actually say where it exists. You're just basically saying, hey, I'm going to refer to this as Orbital Web from now on, and I'm going to refer to this as Orbital API. And then you actually go into your, into your programs and you use those same terms, which is really cool. But then I forget that, okay, that's right, the API. I'm glad that you remember that. But so long story short, how do we deal with that? Well, I think we're going to take the attack multiple, well, I guess we call it the kill two birds with one stone approach. But if you like birds, then maybe this is just solving multiple problems at once. And one of them is, I don't really necessarily want tests that rely on the Cosmos DB repository implementation, which if we go back to our Solution Explorer, we do have currently an orbital.data project, and it has this Cosmos meeting repository with an interface. This interface lives in core. So in core, we have this, and the idea is that multiple implementers could, and we only have one task on here right now because we're just sort of getting going. I think what we're looking for is an in-memory version of this.
Yeah.
And now the first question is where do we want it to live? I suppose is it the kind of thing that we do have live in core? Because does it really need to be in its own project? I don't know.
Well, let's
what do you think?
I'll throw out an idea. So it's not anything that we are ever going to need to have run when we move this to a deployment environment, i.e. when we throw it into Azure, right? The in-memory stuff is really only going to need to happen when we wire up the test. So would that necessarily, I'm thinking that's kind of where that needs to reside.
So maybe it's like an implementation you'd put here. And we could even use mock for this, I think.
Sure.
But I'm kind of okay with seeing if in a short amount of time here we can implement this. So let's see. If we decide that we want to add it here, these things can always be moved, but since this is the test project, we could add it here.
But you want test API, right? Because it runs successfully.
Sorry.
Test. Yeah,
you're right. Okay. You're right. So
I've had all my coffee this morning. It's okay.
Yeah, and I really feel like this hasn't been one of those days where I've been completely awake. So let's say in memory meeting repository. Okay. And
We're going to inherit.
I'm going to go ahead and just try to inherit, just, implement this interface. And of course, it kind of got messed up there. But what I'm interested in here is is it going to say, look, you need the using directive? Yep. So thank you. I tend to do that a lot. And that's actually why I think IntelliSense fought me, because this is what you don't have access to this right now. So you must be creating a new interface. And
so
that's why I think IntelliSense fought me and tried to change it. But now when I tell it, hey, can you fix the problem here? It's like, well, is your problem that you didn't include this namespace? Yes. So.
And now it's saying your problem is you haven't implemented the interface.
That's right. Haven't implemented the interface. And you know what? Let's go ahead and let it do it. Okay, great. I love how when you implement it, it just has everything throw. That's always been my favorite. That's always been my favorite thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Keeps you honest.
Yeah. I like how it suggests a comment there. That's cool. So I think we need a constructor. And yeah, right. That's exactly. Thanks for the tip. So
it's interesting you did it that way. I'm sorry. I know you're.
No, what are you thinking?
So if you delete that, there's the short snippet.
Oh yeah, I don't have this muscle memory built in.
There's
I know that's crazy.
I do. CTOR.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I don't have that. Like, it's just not. Maybe I'll get used to it. I always say on this show there are keyboard shortcuts I've added to my muscle memory since we've started doing this. And maybe now there's other ones too. Like people to do stuff like this. People like to say like prop.
Yeah.
Right.
That's another favorite.
Boom. Yeah.
Tab. Type in name.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a way to...
Once you did prop, then you do tab for the type and then tab for the name, and then you're done.
Oh yeah. Right. I get what you're saying now. Is I can just go here and I can type my property out. Mm-hmm. Okay. You know what? Maybe what would be helpful for me is to like look at a list of those, and then my brain might start to remember. I know that's crazy. I think we all have quirks. There have got to be people watching this show right now saying like, you've used Visual Studio how long? And it's decades, right? And it just for something that never stuck. But maybe it will. Maybe I will. Oh, but you know what we're gonna need? Now that I say that, we are gonna need a prop. We're gonna need let's see. We need a list of meetings, and it's got to be a real list because we got to put stuff in it.
Yep.
I don't want it to be capital. And let's see. Do I want it to be set? Do I care about that? I don't think I care. Especially because I don't know that I really needed a property now that I think about it. Because it's not like somebody from the outside is going to look at this. So I think I can do this. And we're using
the
target typed. This is called target typed. Oh man, what is it called? Because there's the other way, right? Which I can't do. I cannot do that in this declaration, but you could use var in other places and explicitly name it. But these are called target typed. It has a name none of us will ever remember. We think of it as the quick new, right? Target typed new expressions.
Okay.
Right. But I don't know what you call it from a day to day, because I don't think any of us call it that except me trying to remember the name of the feature. Now, what's interesting here is I like how it says collection initialization can be simplified. What are you thinking? What is it thinking? Oh.
Really?
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
That feels weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I could also have done something like this, and I'm not sure that we want to stick with this. Yes, that's what I was looking for.
Right.
Except can I do this?
You gotta move the semi.
Yeah, but can I do this in a declaration? I may not be able to.
Well, you got to put the first curly brace there, otherwise everything else is going to fail. There you go. Now that help? It didn't help any of the thing. Well, it doesn't know the type meeting. I guess it does because that's not underlined. Yeah, I don't think you can do that here.
Right. That's what I'm thinking too. So
if you take all that and bring it down into, yeah.
I'm actually not even sure I really needed the new then. So let's go ahead and say meetings equals, there we go. Yeah, pretty much better. That's pretty much exactly fine.
Yeah. I would probably clean it up and get rid of the new in the line 8.
Yep. It's not really necessary.
Well, it is for our data, because if you don't assign it, because what we're talking about doing is having the type is actually required. It is it is our partition key. So if you don't put the type in and define it, I think it's going to.
Our meeting class, if we remember correctly, I know it's been a while. We don't allow you to set the type. We're sort of hard coding that in a way, right? And
so it'll be there in the object. It's just we're not letting you set it. Okay.
Yeah, and I actually do agree with this. It's funny. I was just thinking this out loud when I looked at it, as I said, man, we have to have an ID, but you could get out of this meeting class without it. So now you have to have one.
You might
with the required keyword, which is a fairly new keyword. And so we'll show you what the effect of that is. If I take this away, now it's going to complain.
Yeah.
You didn't set that. And previously, if I just get rid of the keyword, now it's now it'll say like, sure, okay, go ahead. But that would be bad for us.
Yeah, it's your foot.
Yeah. So we definitely need that. No, your point is well taken. Is type must be in our object because it's important to the Cosmos DB partitioning, but we've taken care of that. It's possible that we could look at this later and consider, right, that's exactly something I was wondering about, is could we do something else, like make it static? So that I think what's really going to happen by either making it static, because I don't think you can make it const. I don't think that's a thing for a field. But I think the net result of making this static is, I believe if we were to examine the IL, we would see one instance of this string in life, where instead every time a meeting was created, it would be like, okay, well, I got to create a string and put meeting in it. And I'm pretty sure that's what would happen. So not that I'm trying to premature. Okay, so we've got an in-meeting repository, an in-memory meeting repository, and we know that we have to implement this get meetings async. And I think this should be pretty straightforward, because this, I think that's actually what I'm going to type. We'll look at it in a second. Because we don't necessarily need to return the list. We can return the more abstract. In fact, that's what the interface does. It returns the more abstract, IEnumerable.
Yeah.
Which means, heck, we don't have to use a list. We could use whatever, right? We could use it doesn't matter. So, but it does return a task, because this is an interface expecting async operations. It's expecting that when you implement it, you might call out over the network, over to a database, over to something.
Yes.
So in order to return a task, but without needing the asynchrony, just look, I've already got the answer in memory, then we use task.fromResult. And I think that's fine. There's other ways to do that. Like, for example, I think, of course, it'll complain about it being unreachable. I think we could also use an extension method. Yeah. I think, is that an extension method? Yes, it is an extension method on IEnumerable, which just basically says, look, I'm going to turn this into a into one of these, sort of.
Mm-hmm. You could also do, I think, dot result. So instead of the from result, like at the end of that, right? So if you said return,
well, I don't have a completed task. That's the thing, right?
but no, the dot result I think gets you once the result comes back. Is it dot result or dot wait?
So dot result and dot wait. Well, first of all, I don't think we want to use them with async await anyway.
Okay. And we don't have to go down this rabbit hole because we do have.
Yeah. So from result, it basically creates a task for you that with its result set to completed and completed successfully. And it's what you use when you say, if you're implementing a method that allows for asynchrony, or that's what task does. Outside of async await, task still allows for asynchrony. If you're basically saying, but I don't need the asynchrony, like my implementation doesn't need it, then this is what we want to do. That's the best practice that I know of, is let task.from result create a task for you that's already completed, it's already successful. Oh, and by the way, this is the result. And so that way it's just done.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So with that done, the next step that we have is, at least as far as I can tell, is, okay, so we've got those saved. I think this is all going to build. This should be fine. Is back in our unit test, now we have this other issue of, okay, so I've got a web application factory and it's based on program. And so that means, yes. Interesting. Let's not make it required for now. We'll have to come back to that.
Okay.
We'll have to come back to that. So why did that blow up in our Razor page? And it makes a ton of sense, because in our Razor page, we're creating a new meeting and we are not taking the time to establish the type. Right? We didn't take the time to do that. And so it blows up. I think that's addressable. I think we can, you're right. Establish ID. I think we can do that. And we'll come back to it. I don't want it to trip us up for now, though. So, okay. The next problem that we have here is back in the API unit test. So this web application factory is bootstrapping what Program CS would pull off. And that is tied to Cosmos DB. Like we already saw that. It's creating the Cosmos DB builder and everything. So what we want to do is, it turns out, and I don't have a ton of experience with this, but I certainly looked at the docs. So I mean, I've played with this a little bit before, but not to this extent, actually. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify this factory. Okay, all we did in the constructor right now is say, well, give me the factory and let me save it locally. Just save a reference to it locally so that I can use it throughout this application. But we don't have to settle for that. We can make a change here, and I wonder if it's going to figure out what I want to do. We can say we want to use the web host builder to make some changes to this type. And so hold on. Configure the test environment, use an in-memory database or mock services, replace the real repository with an in-memory one. So I want to say, I don't know if I have that in my notes. It's close though. It's close. So my notes do something a little different. And let's just see what this is complaining about. I think the problem here is that this is not included. So now it should be fine. Okay. So let's go over what you can do here. You can go to the build. You can basically modify the builder after the fact. So here in Program CS, in our Program CS for the actual API, we have been using the builder to add services. And what you're doing here is coming along and saying, okay, for the purposes of this application, I actually want to make some changes. I think the way they've implemented this works. I think it works. But I think technically there's going to be 2 services that resolve to iMeeting repository. So it might not work.
Why? So where are those 2 services? Because one is in orbital.data and the other service is here inside of your orbital test.api.
It was already configured here.
And that's in the program CS of the API.
Yes, right.
Okay.
And this little bit right here is telling Web Application Factory, go build yourself based on program.
Okay.
So then you're like, well, where did program come from? Well, we have included, there's a reference in this project, right? Let me go to, yep. So right now it is resolving to that program sitting all the way back in our actual API project.
Yes.
That's what it's resolving to. It's building that web host. So I think that there are 2 services, and I can prove that if I set a breakpoint here.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and run this unit test now. We'll run it in debug. I don't know if that's going to be a problem, though, because I think there's a service resolution. So if I go to services, there's 224 of them. I have in the past done some interesting stuff here. I've done this before to look through services. I've gone to the immediate window and I've said like services. I think I've done where.
Yeah.
And then S goes to S dot. The problem is I don't know. Let me take a quick peek.
Service type.
I think service type is what I want. Yeah. So S dot service type is equal to, and it is
in meeting. Well, the other one is not. It's Cosmos, right?
Contains. And let's say iMeeting repository. And I don't know why I'm using single quotes as if I'm in JavaScript or something. Okay. One more of those. All right.
Sure.
No overload. Oh, okay. Well, what does contains take? Shows what I know. Dot where this goes to stop. Oh, I didn't finish the goes to S dot service type dot contains I was hoping to get some help there.
Yeah.
I know I've done this before. Because it's not going to be iMeeting repository. It's going to be the whole thing.
Yeah. Maybe this might help.
Yeah, what do you have?
Alan has suggested type of
type of
repository.
Whoops. Let's see. So I've totally messed that up. Service type. Would I want to say equals? Because is service type actually a type? I think it might be.
Yeah.
But what I don't know is if I'm going to have to give it more than that. I might not. And then, of course, I always forget the second one. I've done this before to like examine that services repository.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a while. But the main thing I was trying to do, and I appreciate that, thank you very much, Alan, is I think what I was trying to do was prove that there's 2 of them. I don't know that I need to get hung up on it. Yeah, okay, yeah. Perfect, right? It did it. It did what we wanted. Yay, so thank you. Thank you, Alan. That was perfect. Yeah. So what I don't remember, though, is if the rules on this are going to give us this one anyway. So let's go ahead and follow it through. And we get down to our client get async, which in the past has been blowing up on us. And instead we have a passing test. So that kind of tells me that it used the second one.
Right, because we know
we blew up earlier. Yeah, we blew up earlier when we didn't do that.
So
go ahead.
This might be a deeper question. Is there something about that implementation that essentially fails and the service, it's almost, or is it expanding outward? What do I have locally implemented versus I don't know. I guess I'm trying to figure out how does it make that decision?
So here's the thing. It's the difference between me looking at the docs to take some notes on how to replace the iMeeting repository implementation from the API for our testing purposes. And like being a human being, I go for the complete solution. And the Copilot AI says like, well, this will work. And at least it's figuring out this is what you probably want to do. So let me just show you what you can do. Remove. Oh, I love that. I love how it's like, this is what you wanted to do, right? And so what you have to do is you can go find the existing. So now this is matching my notes, right? Okay. You can go. I should have just looked at my notes and I would have seen the type of right there. Now it is going out to find the existing meeting repository. This is exactly matching what I was going to do. And if the descriptor is not null, then basically meaning you did find one and only one, then remove it. So this is exactly what I pulled out of the docs was, hey, remove the existing one and add the one you want to use for testing.
Yeah. Excellent.
So and you could consider Alan, this maybe for completeness. Yeah.
Sorry. It certainly lessens the confusion. Yeah. Thank you, Alan, for commenting there too, because I think that helps break down, making sure you only have one implementation in your services that is going to get pulled in.
Yeah, and even if it's not going to cause a problem, you have another developer coming along looking at this code who might ask the same question, and now you've expressed your intent very clearly, and so nobody's going to. It's okay. I see what we're doing, and you just move on. And so we actually have like, yay, we have a test works. So I think this puts us in a place where we wanted to be, where we can work on code, right. And we could even do it in a way where now I think let's see, what do we have? 7 minutes left. So we're okay.
We got time.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay. I think this puts us in a place where we can even say something like, well, why don't we add the next feature to the repository?
Yeah.
And instead of doing it the way we've been doing it before, where we would just go do it, let's write it here.
Get meeting by ID.
Yeah, I don't necessarily. So this one is just testing. All that did was test. That just tested the
the status code.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. Let's do some simple ones. Let's say get meetings returns correct amount or something like that. This test, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Let's see what it comes up with. Create the client, call it again, ensure the success status code. And then this is probably going to require read as async. This, we've gone through this a couple times. This is the read as async requires something. And it's funny how we don't ever usually get this. Is it the system.net.http? No.
No.
Or okay, let me think about this. So the problem here is get client, Just the status code. Get the meetings back. All right. Well, I actually have some notes on what I wanted to do here. So,
when you did the control dot, it looked like it was trying to do something with the orbital core.
Oh, was it? That doesn't make sense, though, does it?
It doesn't. Yeah.
Oh, wait. The meeting is not included. So maybe that really is the problem. But see, I still think this is. We already know that. We already know that we don't have read as async. HTTP content does not contain. Is it because I want response.read as async? Let me think. I have some notes on this, so I should be able to theoretically just look at those, right? Okay.
Yeah. We could also look at what is it? It is.
This is my brain forgot about read from JSON async.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So meetings.count. Meetings might be null. I guess that's true. So I'm just clicking on this little blue dot to run the test just real quick from here, and that passes. So it's not like I created a failing test or anything, but that's fine. Now, what we could do is, what happens if we now try to, we know, the other thing we know is we can, well, we did this last time where we used theory. Right? And then, yeah, the inline data, perfect. So let's change this. And then we want this to be /API/meetings. And let's see, HTTP status code .ok. And then, of course, this is going to complain saying, why don't you have any method parameters? And we say string. I'm just going to call this target URI. And this is a type of system.net.http status code, system.net.http status code. And then I should be able to change this here, change that there, and this should still work. Should still pass. I think it passed. We didn't exactly see it. Okay.
The milliseconds were different. Yep.
Okay. I love the little clues that we look for to try and figure out whether or not it passed. So now we can say, what happens if you call this one? Do both of those and run those tests. Okay, and that succeeded as well. Does that make sense?
I think so.
No. This didn't run. It didn't run the second one. I don't expect it to pass. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why I don't expect it to pass is we don't have an implementation for that in our in-memory repository yet. Right. In fact, we don't even have it on our interface, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So
I think
we can do that pretty quickly. Yeah. Meeting. Oh, look at that. It's going to do pretty much exactly what I wanted. So we need to go back and implement that. the interesting thing here is this is going to cause some issues with the Cosmos version of this, Cosmos DB version of this.
Okay.
So now we can say return from result. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Oh, I see. Because it's first or default, that's going to mean that it could be null. Let's do that. So now if I head back here, we don't have our API does have this. Our API does have this.
Our API has it.
Right.
It was just whether our repository did, and the test one did not. The in-memory repository did not.
I still think the build's going to fail because the Cosmos DB version of this does not implement that interface.
But we pulled that out, right?
We did, but the problem I can't build the entire solution.
Oh,
now, granted, maybe I don't need to build the entire solution, right? Just to run that test.
Just build your test project, yeah.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to just have it implement it so that we build.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think we could have there could have been a way to make that work. So now let's see if I'm wrong. If we go to I actually intentionally wanted it to go red, and clearly we haven't quite gotten there. So it's fine. ID equals ID. Oh, it could be because I didn't actually. Let's go look at the test. I may. The test may not be great. I said API meetings 1. Okay. And it still didn't work. It still didn't pass. So let's debug. I've probably forgotten something. So first we're going to call just the list version of this. Yeah. Step over, status code is okay. Code we're expecting is okay. So that's good. But when we come around the second time and we call API meetings this way, one thing that I found is that I can't easily step into the actual API because this sends you off to HTTP client land. And I think that technically speaking, I don't think I'm going to be able to easily. I've thought about this for a while. I was like, is it possible in these tests to get here essentially?
Right.
And I don't think it's going to. So that is interesting because it leaves you in a place of trying to figure out, oh, I see what the problem is. Actually,
we've implemented. Yep.
Yeah.
It's not this wasn't
switched. This wasn't switched. So this is going to leave us with some work to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
So I think we just say var meeting equals await repository get meetings by ID async, and
we need the ID value in the constructor.
Okay. Right.
Well, just come a string ID, right?
Yeah. You say string ID, but do I have to say from? Maybe I don't. Maybe the model binding is smart enough, because I was trying to figure out, do I have to say from query here?
I don't think so. It came in without it before.
Right. That's the fun part of doing this like all on the fly, is that these are the kinds of little things where like I would type and then I'd go like, oh yeah, I got to do this and I got to do that. Okay. So now we're going to find out. And unfortunately, I know if people are like going nuts in the comments saying, oh my gosh, it's not going to work, then I apologize that I'm not looking at them at the moment. but I
I'm
will.
not seeing anything like that.
In just a second, I will. Okay, so we know that this version is going to work, and then this one where we just try to get just one. Oh, look at that. Maybe I was wrong when I was saying earlier about like that we can't get in here. See, because I hit that breakpoint this time, so that's fine. We don't always, and then yeah, Alan makes a good point in that comment. There's a reason why on this show I have just my code off, and I just didn't turn it off. The reason I've had is because we have on this show stepped into framework code, and I just didn't turn the feature back on. So here's the good news. The good news is our response status code was okay. Code was okay. So this is going to go green.
And it is.
So what I like about that actually is I like the fact that we put that test in. It went red. We made changes to fix it. It went green. I like that.
That's the way it should work, right?
Yeah, right. Imagine that. And certainly as we write more tests here, we may not be writing tests that immediately fail all the time. And we may do things like, I personally like to look and say like, okay, how do I want to deal with this? I don't know that the answer is always to just sort of find the cheaty way to do it, but getting rid of warnings early in a project is something I like to do. Yeah. It can get away from you, and then you have the project with 250 warnings and no errors, and then you're never going to do it. And
yeah,
it can get away from you. It can get away from you and your team. I'm trying very hard not to sound like I'm scolding you if you let it get away from you, because I have projects right now and projects that past lives that it gets away from all of us. But I think it's a good practice. So.
So that real quick before we drop off of this, that response object that you had to find the right value for. So that's an HTTP response message.
Right. Yeah. So when you call get async, you get back this response message, and you can look at it. There's quite a bit of interesting stuff in here besides that method there that just does the quick ensure status code. You can interrogate the content, the headers, the message. You can get really, anything you want about what came back over the HTTP response, which I think can be very helpful. Typically speaking, I think, there's even patterns where you just get, you make your HTTP call and you just immediately get the JSON back and you don't even worry about it.
Gotcha. So the reason I bring that up, do you know about source.net?
Oh yeah. I've used it.
Because that's what I was trying to do to get there, because instead of you going in the code there and saying dot whatever, it was I think it's source.
Or is it reference source.net or something like that?
It's source.dot.net.
Okay. Yeah. Source browser. Yep.
There you go. So in here, you could put in that HTTP response message.
Yeah, I've used this.
If you do .content, now you get the content object, which is a property, which actually is, if you click that, that actually is an HTTP content object. And you can click that link there as well. The actual, and that'll take you to, so you can actually drill into it and see there's the methods that we need. If you scroll down, there's a bunch of them that are, I think what you were looking for, like read byte as array or read string, I think it was read string async is what you went with.
Yeah, no, sure. So we have a great question to end it off. I don't know if you saw this. We haven't put it up yet, right?
I did not. No,
do you prefer MemoryDB or test container? I find the mem version don't test well as they act different to the real DB. Absolutely. That's true. So I don't know if where we're going to land is to try and implement multiple variations on this because you would actually do it as a team or more as a demonstration and just learning kind of aspect. What all this really is going to buy us, we're not even getting the best feature out of this yet, in my opinion. All this is going to buy us, I think, is testing how the API reacts to answers from the iMeeting repository interface. So right now we're doing happy path tests.
Right.
Those are a piece of cake. What I want to explore is how does the API respond to the bad situations? I mean, obviously we're talking about Cosmos DB, so this would never happen, but maybe it's down. So that's not, let's
Right.
talk about your, an app that you might have on site with a SQL server on site, like that could really be down.
Mm-hmm.
How does your API respond? Does your API get essentially, like when it makes this other network call and gets a bad answer, like maybe an exception is thrown, does it leak those exception details to the consumer, or does it log them out to where your customer service or support or whoever's supporting the app, they could go look it up, and does it return the user a trace ID or something like what gets surfaced back to both the caller and the customer?
Mm-hmm.
What I want to land in the customer's laps, if I'm maybe some kind of enterprise application, is that when they call up and they're frustrated and they say, I don't know why the app's not working, have we surfaced them something that isn't the actual exception and stack trace and all that stuff, but
Right.
helps the support team go, we know exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
So what we're doing now, I don't think helps as much with happy path issues and more of problem path issues. We just haven't implemented any of them yet or faked them or whatever. So I will say, when you talk about test containers, we did try on this show the .NET Aspire test project, which actually spins up the whole thing. And it turns out, I don't know if you exactly meant this with your question, but I want to try the test container NuGet package and do integration tests with that actually spin up our target database. Because I think, to your point, that represents the real integration versus just trying to test how does the API respond in situations. What we talked about early on in the show is that those integration tests we might save for the continuous delivery pipeline. I'm not sure. Or they might be something that the developer doesn't deal with build to build to build to build. In other words, they won't go red, so the developer doesn't sit there waiting for them and they just keep moving. But I do think it could be valuable to have a way for your developer before their code commit to go, well, you know what, let me try the integration suite. And then we certainly want the continuous delivery pipeline to perform the integration suite.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Actually, well, semantics. We'll let it go.
I know. I mean, it's easy to get lost
totally.
in. And I think we're trying really hard not to get lost in weeds, but I think that's a great question, and I'm glad we discussed it. So,
absolutely.
And I hope, I don't know, Alan, if you think similarly with all of it, and we always love the comments, and you've always come with a lot of great comments, questions, and feedback, and saved me on my brain blank on using type of instead of trying to match by string. Yeah. I've done that before with the immediate window to do that exact thing, to search through the services, because you can see there's hundreds of them that are being put in auto-magically for you. But I wanted to find mine. I wanted to know if mine was being injected correctly, or not so much injected, but is dependency injection going to resolve it the way I think it's going to resolve it? And I've used that immediate window to do that. And then here in the moment, I just don't remember what I'm doing. It happens to me all the time. When I give
the lights and the cameras running.
Oh yeah. when I give code talks, I usually have notes, and I even write, like, especially if I'm on a lectern, you know, where previously at the MTC, we didn't have that second screen that I could rely on. So I would print, I had them printed out.
I've seen it.
And I would have notes. I would have big capital letters of like, don't forget this step or everything else isn't going to work, you know? Or when you get this error, it's because you didn't do the look back, and I would draw an arrow on the paper, like, because as I would run through it, I would go, why did my run through not work? Why did my run through not work? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to forget this live. Clearly I'm going to skip over this. So I would like get a highlighter and highlight it and whatever. My mind goes blank, which is crazy. But anyways, thanks everybody for watching today. We're definitely
thanks for comments.
Several minutes over. Comments were great. Definitely helped us. So that's awesome. We will have this show, as always, is available. And see, I beat you to it this time. They're always available at youtube.com/TheDevTalkShow. If you're watching in the future, let us know what the weather's like. And at the same time, don't hesitate to comment. Anything you think about what we're saying, we want to hear. What are patterns you like to use at work? What do you think that we're should or shouldn't be doing? It's okay. I mean, I don't think any of us would expect or want it to turn into like a contentious war, but I do think that hearing different ideas from different developers might help you and your team and your situation.
Yeah.
Not every situation is the same. We don't all have to do the same things. But we all want to be successful. So once again, thanks for joining us. Anything else, Rich, or are we ready for that weekend?
I think we're ready for the countdown to it for sure. There's a lot that happens before I can call it done.
Still got to get through a work day here in the Eastern U.S. time zone, no matter where you are in the world. Thanks for joining us. So for Rich, I'm Chris, and we will see you next time on the Dev Talk Show.